Hello again, welcome to Wogscapes. I've got 2 weeks before Comic-Con, so let's do some painting. So like I said in the last video, Edmonton Expo, Comic and Entertainment Expo, I've got a booth there. And I want this board ready to display. So here we are here. I finished doing the texturing on the river. Just some PVA glue and sand down there. I've puttied in some of the cracks that I don't like. These edges are all textured. So now we're moving on to paint. I'm just using a regular house paint for this. Just dark brown to start with. So here we are here, first coat. So next up here, I'm getting the base color in for the rock edges along here, right? And it's a dark grayish blue color that I've used before. It's great. And the brown is still a bit wet here. It's not quite dry. I don't really mind. So I'm just going on there, and I'm not worried about getting right into the cracks, even though this is a base color. If the brown stays in the cracks there, it's going to look a little bit like mud. And also, I'm kind of picking up a bit of the mud, this brown, as I'm going along, and kind of wet mixing it a little bit. Quasi unintentionally, quasi just because I'm not too worried about it. And also thinking about where, right, this is going to be the underlay for the grass, right? There's going to be grass over top of this. So I'm also thinking that because this part sticks out, that the grass may not have grown all the way towards the edge. So where I've got sticky outy pieces, I'm kind of rounding it off like that. And where there's a long flat section, the grass may have pushed closer to the edge. All right, so kind of thinking about where the grass is going to fall, basically, as I'm going along. Feather it out a little bit, pick up any sharp edges. Yeah. There we go. So let's take a look at the sample board here. I also included these little rocky sections sticking up, right? The exposed bedrock sections. And that was done using a tin foil mold with plaster. So very basic, very simple here. Tin foil, you crumple it up, right? You pour the plaster into that, and you get that texture. Well, there's the mold. There's the casting. There we go. Right, just to get some rocky shapes in there. So now the fun part, I want to break this up into smaller pieces and start moving them around and see if I like what happens. So ready, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, that didn't, only the edges broke. That was supposed to be spectacular. Oh, there it goes. Satisfying. All right, let's do it again. Bang. 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 Here we go. Okay, so that grayish dark blue base is on there. I'm totally having second thoughts about this stuff, about putting that on there. Oh, I don't know. I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna leave it out. I really like the way it looks right now. I'm gonna leave it out. That might be a mistake. I'm gonna leave it out. All right, next step. There's my little swatch, so I remember what colors I'm doing. Right, there's the blue, there's the gray, there's the next one there. So, dark gray, medium gray. It's going to be my medium tone for these rocks. And once again, I'm going to go over top. It's not quite dry yet. I'm not too worried about that. And going for maybe 50% coverage. Maybe 40% coverage. Right? This is, let's go 60. 52.5. I don't know. Right, you got to remember there's going to be a highlight on top of this. Right? So don't go too light with it. Yeah. Okay, same technique as before, basically, just a little bit lighter, right? So, kind of a dry brush technique. just a little bit of paint on there. I'm going to use this piece as just as a palette, work it into the bristles, and oh, it looks so good. So here we go. Here's the thing. That looks really good like that. Any more, and you're starting to lose some of that detail. But you got to remember, there's going to be, again, a lighter tone on top of this. So if I do this really lightly, and I just pick up the highlights here, then I go with the lighter tone, and I go over top of it again, all this gray that I'm putting down is gone. So when I'm doing this, I'm thinking, right, get it on there, and just keep loading up more until you get to the point where it looks like you're actually starting to lose some of that detail, like you're putting it on a little too heavy. And then maybe even go a little further and then stop. Because again, remember that highlight, that light tone is going to come in and pick up those really sharp edges there. What is that? What's the percentage? I don't know, man. 52. 52. Angle. Down. There. Okay, also, I'm thinking about when I'm doing this rock. Can you see me? Yeah, okay. When I'm doing this here, I'm also thinking about bringing it a little bit too far down, right? And bringing it into this river a little bit, right? Because this is going to be part of the undercoat painting for the water effects here. And the middle of this is going to be super, super, super dark blue, more muddy towards the edges. But where there's stone, I want stone. Where there's stone up here, I want stone down here. Where there's mud up here, I want mud down here. So again, bringing that gray just into that river a little bit as well. And lastly for the rocks, kind of lastly, I don't know. Nextly, for the rocks, this highlight here, which is actually kind of a grayish yellow. Right. Just give it a little bit of warmth. Right. So next, these rocks are looking a little too consistent. Here's a nice section over here, right? So I'm going to mix that up. I want some different colors in there. So I'm going to get this rusty red and make kind of a wash and just splatter it on there a little bit. Okay, there it is with the orange. There's a combination of, I can't do this one-handed, but dabbing and flicking. This is me flicking the brush one-handed. Flicking it like this. Psh, psh, psh. Right? So there you can some dabby marks there and some like flicky marks just to get some like spray dots kind of thing, right? Just so I'm not repeating the same motion or pattern. It looks a little intense right now. It's going to lighten up when it dries. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing again with black. Okay, I've splattered a little bit of that black on there as well. And I've gone ahead and I took that same black wash and I started working on the river. Once again, it's looking a little intense right now. That'll lighten up once it dries. So I'm going to let that dry overnight and then come back to it. So I'm working on the river right now. That gray blue that I used on the rocks, I put a layer of that in. Very watered down. You can see it's still wet, and I'm letting that dry. And at the same time, I want to bring a little bit more mud into it. So I'm looking for spots like this where I think maybe water, when there's a big rain, would come down here and flood into the river. And I'm looking specifically for like little grooves in here where this would flow down and just bring a little bit more mud back into that. And looking for some areas that are a little more smooth, like maybe right here. Not so rocky. Again, maybe this bank here is a little muckier, muddier, so I'm going to mud this up and along here as well. So just a bit of that brown. It's quite wet. And just Yeah, just like that, right? Just get a little bit of it in there. All right, there we go. I've got some of those muddy spots worked into there. And just pick on this guy. Again, just kind of thinking about, this is a bit of a low spot here, so I think that if there's water up here, it would flow this way and then down towards the river, so you know, a little more muck over here. And then where it came down to the river, just swept it along this way a little bit and back that way a little bit. Right, same over here, just a little mucky spot here, and just let that sweep this way and this way. Some of these areas where the water is going to be moving a little slower, there's maybe some debris is going to be settling here, right? A little slow spot in the river. Yeah. And now, theoretically, if the water's going this way, right? If the mud is dripping down this way, then it would be flowing this way, not both directions. However, because these tables are modular, right? You can take them, you can flip them around. I can't really decide which way the water's going. I can't commit to anything like that, right? So if the water's going this way, and it's going this way, but then the next time I play, if I take this table and I flip it around this way, then all of a sudden they're not cooperating, right? So I got to think about that when I'm painting, and I need to think about that if I'm doing any rippling effects as well. If I put any turbulent water stuff here, I kind of have to put it here as well. So I can't have huge rapids trailing behind a rock, right? That's not going to work. So it's got to be a little more of a calm river than that. Okay, time to flock. I did a little sample here. It's not glued down. I just sort of sprinkled it on there. I don't think I'm going to go with the dried leaves. Maybe. I can always add them later. But there's a highlight, burnt grass, green mix, and weeds. So I'm going to paint on the glue. Where is it? There it is. Ta-da. PVA glue, touch of water, and paint over, pick an area, paint over, and I'm going to start with the highlights and the shades, and then green and the rest. I've also done a little bit of highlight painting on some of these areas, right, just to, I don't know, show some areas that are a little bit elevated or dry, right? I don't know if that's going to show through or not. And going for about maybe 80% coverage with the flock, not 100% coverage, right, not too much. So you can see a little bit of that brown through there. All right, that's it. Here we go. Okay, first layer done. Obviously you can see like some white patches there where the glue is still wet. That'll dry. Not clear, but not white. Clearish. Let's get around, back up a little bit. Right. There we go. So do the top part first, and then the bottom, so that I can get some of those darker greens in these little cracks, right? There's the ledges. There's a mixture of the light, the middle, and the dark green scattered around on there. So, I don't know, I guess I gotta walk away, let this dry, and see how it actually looks. I'm pretty happy with it. So I finally made up my mind, and I did include some of these little exposed bedrock zones here. Right, a couple over here. The top layer of the grass is dried and hardened. And now I'm going to start working on the lower levels here. Because this board is all broken up into little shapes, right? It's very easy to just work on one section like this at a time. Finish that, then go on to the next one. Put the glue down, put the flock down, then go on to the next. Glue, flock. If this were completely flat, if you do that, you're not going to end up with nice, smooth gradations like this. You'll come up to where you put the glue down, and then you put your flock down, then you put your next glue down, your next flock down, and you won't get that nice, smooth transition, which can actually also look really cool because you get weird lines and shapes happening in there. It just might not be exactly what you had intended. But for now, I'm going to pick this spot right here, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing with the flock. Okay, so I've got my glue mix here, PVA glue, and some little bit of water just to thin it out. Probably 3 parts glue to 1 part water. The water, again, just there to thin it out, so it's just not too thick. And I'm gonna brush it on. I'm gonna make sure that I get right into, not right up the rocks, but close to the face there. I want to make sure I get right to this edge here. And then I'm gonna brush it over the rocks a little like this, so it's a little bit feathered. Right. That'll do. First color I'm going to start with is burnt grass. I'm going to use this for the more thin areas, and I'm going to go much thinner on the whole lower level. I think I'm going to go a little bit thinner, but especially towards the rocks. The water has been sweeping past, and it's hard for stuff to grow along here. I think, maybe, I don't know. That's what I'm going with. Right. And there we go. I'm going to go a little lighter with the flock again on this. By lighter I mean less flock on this bottom section here. Do it. And once again, I got to remember, whatever I'm doing on this edge here, I've got to do on this edge over here, which means the other edge is down there, and down there I have to do the same thing. So if I'm putting burnt grass here and then green blend here, I have to do that here, here, here on all the pieces. Otherwise, when you put them together, they don't line up. Okay, green blend, I'm working my way from light to dark. I'm finding that's the easiest, personally. All right, green blend is next. If you go way down low like this, you end up with like little spots. So I'm going way up high here, and it's really hard to control it, but I mean, it's kind of the point. You want a little bit of randomness with this, right? Just going to catch some of the excess falling off the edge here. A little bit heavier along there. There we go. Okay, pretty happy with that. Weeds, for my darker, I think this looks like wetter, heavier kind of greenery, right? So in around the cracks here, I think it's going to be a little bit wetter there, so it's going to be dry up here and wet down here. So I want this darker stuff right wherever there's little spots where water can collect. I'm just going to feather that out a little bit, and I'm just going to put a little patch over here just to, there we go. Alright, I'm going to leave it there and see how that turns out. I'm pretty happy with it. Okay. Now I gotta do the rest of the board. So all the flocking's done now. I'm happy enough with it. I'm still gonna go in and do some details in here. So just to get this, make sure this is all locked down. Before even the glue is dried, spray bottle from the dollar store, the PVA glue and water mix in here. I want this to be able to spray nicely, right? So I add about 50% glue, 50% water, I mix it up, and then I go to the sink and I start spraying, and of course it comes out, because it's too thick, it comes out a little bit, I don't know, too thick, right? It doesn't give it fine mist. And then I slowly just start adding water, mix it up, spray, spray, spray. Nope, not there yet. A little more water, mix it up, spray, 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 and then I just keep going until I get that nice mist. Ends up being closer to about 40 glue to 60 water percentage, right? So now these areas that I'm done, I'm just gonna mist over top so that even the stuff that's on top is going to be glued down. I don't find any compromise in the strength of the glue when you water it down. You just might need to do more layers. So I'm going to spray this down. I'm going to clean up the rivers, because of course there's going to be this spray in the river now. And then let that dry, and then it's just going to be a couple of days of let it dry, do another layer of this, let it dry, do another layer, and it will be rock hard. That's it. Now all of the glue is dry. My last application was 2 days ago, so it's pretty good and dry now. I think I've done enough coats, layers on there. And just as a durability test, what I'm doing is I'm taking a, it's not steel wool, but like a scouring pad, scrub pad, right? I'm not pushing too hard, but I'm just kind of sweeping. And I know you can't really see it, but I'm not really getting much, like a couple little flecks. So I think that's good. The last thing I want to do before pouring the river is I want to put a coat of Varathane on this. Spray Varathane, matte finish, right? So it's not too glossy. That's going to help seal everything. It's still, there we go, clean hand. And slightly green fingers there now. The pigment is still running a little bit, right? So that Varathane is going to help seal everything in. Stain proof it to some degree. Of course, it's going to help just lock everything down. But I definitely want to do that before doing the river, because if you spray over onto the resin, it will leave not a film, but you will see speckles on there instead of having nice glass finish on it. Now I am going to, like this one here, I am going to do the ripples, but I'm not going to go as heavy on the paint. So I'm going to leave the texture on there, but leave it clear. So again, I don't want that Varathane messing that up. So Varathane first before the river. But before I do the Varathane, I'm going to take good old vacuum, and I'm going to do a combination of scratching and cleaning. I'm just going to turn that on and just suck all the whatever excess up there, and that's what I'm doing. Thanks again for watching. Just a reminder, I will be at the 2018 Edmonton Expo on September 21 to, right there, that one there. September 21, 2, and 3. Right, so if you're coming down, find my tables there and we can chat about terrain. That's it. Ciao.